No worries.
Mhm.
But Dr. Mortel, from the very beginning, was just a great mentor, both at a distance and personally, in showing the power of mentorship with the hundreds and hundreds of students that he impacted, students that would have no idea that STEM careers were possible had it not been for him. He was a medical doctor. Of course, all the students wanted to be like him and wanted to be a medical doctor because they could see themselves through him, which was very cool. Not all of them became medical doctors, but a lot of them pursued many different things, many in the computer fields and technology fields, I think in part due to our work also down there when we built some computer classrooms and built some STEM labs and created something in the early 2000s called a wiki, which was before there was Facebook, before there was Schoology or Blackboard or any of those learning management. The students that I had in my school of Palmyra created a wiki with the students in St. Mark. So we had a learning management platform and we used Skype and we used YouTube to teach each other lessons from, I don't know, 3,000 miles apart, from Palmyra down to Haiti and back. And it was the coolest thing. There was no Zoom back then, but there was Skype. Yeah. So just great. All these mentors have really helped us create great things.
Was that the beginning of your interest in mentorship and outreach?
What my Haiti experience taught me
Yes.
was that the world has crazy problems. Haiti's got crazy abject poverty. They had an earthquake while I was there, work in that time period. Every country has very complex problems. To me, I firmly believe in my core that the answers to the world's complex problems are hidden in the minds of our youth, wherever they are in the world, born, unborn, whatever race, whatever ethnicity, poor, rich. And it is on us as the adult humans on this planet to cultivate their minds to solve the world's problems. When people complain and say there's too many problems in the world, I feel like our role is to solve those problems, is to mentor and develop the young minds out there to solve those problems. I totally believe the answers to the world's problems are in the untapped minds of all the youth.
Are we doing enough to mentor young minds in your own experience? Are we doing enough? Is enough been done?
I feel like I'm not doing enough. I feel like we all have so much more to do. If children are not being exposed around the world to the different potential academic fields and careers, if they don't have the basic, if you've ever heard of Maslow's hierarchy of needs, just the basic things you need to survive, you need that before you can actually start doing intellectual pursuits with any vigor. I feel like all those things are needed and they're all part of the puzzle to solving the world's problems. It comes down to children.
My recording was off, so I'm going to go back to the first question.
Sure.
Please pardon me, forgive me for that. If you could have a dinner with any historical or modern day figures in STEAM, who will it be and why?
So it would be one of my biggest mentors, and that would be Dr. Roderick Mortel. Dr. Roderick Mortel was born poorest of the poor in St. Mark, Haiti, and he rose through abject poverty, was a Horatio Alger Award winner. I don't know much about the Horatio Alger Award, but it is a rags to riches award. Oprah Winfrey won the award. Many famous people won that award. It's people who have been born in poverty and have gone on to make an incredible difference in the world and incredible achievements. So Dr. Mortel, being born poorest of the poor in Haiti, rose to become a world-renowned cancer researcher and doctor at Hahnemann Hospital in Philadelphia, Sloan Kettering in New York City, and eventually was one of the founders of the Penn State Hershey Medical Center and has saved countless lives, has mentored countless pre-med students who have gone on to save lives themselves. And then when he retired, he went back to Haiti to form schools to, again, just keep his priority of education and mentorship going. So the impact that he has made has been amazing. He passed away about 3 years ago. So who would I want to spend time with? I'd like to check in with him after being in his glory up in heaven, to just see the fruits of his labor have blossomed all over the world. Because all of us plant seeds throughout our life, and we have no idea if those seeds bear fruit. But there is a point in time where you can look down and you can see those seeds bearing fruit. And I am sure he is just smiling from ear to ear because he sees all these fruits that have developed.
I believe may his legacy be memorable, and I believe indeed he will be smiling because you are a product of his mentorship. And look at now, you are doing great things not only in the United States but all across the world, trying to make a difference in the field of STEAM. Thank you so much for sharing that. Will you consider yourself a STEAM nerd? What's one STEAM topic or project that excites you the most? I ask that question because I'm an educator and so are you. And I'm pretty sure you have had an experience with students who don't want to be referred to as nerds. And I always tell my students there's nothing wrong with being a nerd. What is your take on this?
So I am a STEM nerd of whatever the next biggest thing is. I just love the future of whatever research or technology or engineering is coming down the pike. I was always that way as a teacher, felt I always wanted to bring the cutting edge into my classroom throughout my 35 years. And this current role that I have as a Penn State liaison is perfect for that, because that is our unit's role. We are finding out what's the latest cutting edge thing researchers are doing, and we translate their work and put them into K-12 classrooms. It is just the coolest, nerdiest, funnest thing you can do. It's like living in a TED Talk. If you're familiar with TED Talks, every week I'm learning something new. We're learning something new at our department from every researcher you can imagine, from ag to medical to AI to engineering to space. It's just unbelievable.
So I'm a nerd. I'm proud of it. That's all good. All right. So let's talk about STEAM, our education and outreach. So right now you are a liaison and an outreach liaison at Penn State Center for Science and the schools. Can you tell us what is this center and what are some of the key initiatives you're involved with?
Yeah, be happy to do that. So most universities, if they have something called a center, usually lives inside a college in that university and serves just that college. There might be a center in the College of Engineering. There might be a center in the psychology, in the College of Education. We are a center that acts like an institute. If you're in higher ed, an institute is something that serves all colleges within a university. So that's how we act. We are a center, but we act more like an institute. We serve all of Penn State, all the branch campuses or Commonwealth campuses of Penn State. And what we do is we help the researchers achieve their grants, their grant proposals. So if you are at an R1 university, which stands for a major research university like University of Maryland, University of Pennsylvania, Penn State, and you're a researcher that wants to get a federal grant, federal grants are judged on two merits. Merit number one is called intellectual merit. And intellectual merit is, what is it you're doing in your research that would impress peer researchers? Okay, that may be the things that you and I don't understand, but if you're in that research community, that would be very impressive. But the second thing that's required is called broader impacts. And broader impacts, it sounds exactly what it is. It's also called research impacts. What is that researcher doing to give back to the people of the United States for them through federal agencies, allowing them some grant money, some of their taxpayer money to do research? So the federal government has several buckets that can be used for broader impacts. Workforce development, national security, infrastructure, K-12 STEM. So what our unit does is when a researcher is going for a grant, They're really good about writing the grant based on their research because that's what they're experts at. But researchers don't really have time to figure out how to translate their research into a K-12 classroom or into workforce development. Those are the things that we are all specialized in at the Center for Science in the School. We're specialized in translating that into programs that bolster workforce development and that bolster K-12 STEM education. So we take whatever that researcher happens to be working on and we translate it into programs. We had a researcher, I think 2 years ago, that had an anti-earthquake machine. If you can imagine that, what a cool thing. That researcher found out that earthquakes really don't seem to affect forests. I don't know if you've ever noticed that, but you never look on TV
No,
and
I've
see
never
that
really,
this,
really.
this forest has been devastated by an earthquake. It really doesn't happen because the trees act like resonators.
Wow.
And they repel the incoming wave of the earthquake. So this professor created these simulated resonator beams or poles, and through simulations could model an earthquake coming in, and the resonators would be like the natural trees and would protect structures like buildings and things like that. Those are the kinds of things that we're learning and then transferring that, creating a mathematical computer model that teachers and students can use to protect their school from an earthquake. Just amazing, jaw-dropping, cool stuff.
Oh my God, this is this is epic. I've never really thought about that. What a concept to bring to my classroom. Wow, that is great. Your outreach, I mean, your center really does a lot because I believe a lot of us scientists and researchers could use centers such as yours. Yeah, you're absolutely right. We're good in our research and whatever we do, but when it comes to writing the grants and meeting all the requirements of the grants, I think that's a different topic. I wonder, do you collaborate with other centers? Are there centers like yours across Pennsylvania, across the country, or are you
Yeah, so there's
one of?
a professional group called ARIS,
Okay,
ARIS. It's Advancing Research Impact in Science.
okay,
And they are professionals at most universities throughout the United States. And we meet once a year and we share best practices and what we do. So we are all connected and networked. And it just depends on the university. Some universities have really good broader impacts infrastructure built into the universities. So those universities are highly competitive about getting grants and can compete other institutions that may not have such a good broader impacts unit with them. Yeah, there's a whole broader impacts, research impacts ecosystem throughout the country.
okay. Thank you so much for sharing that really great nugget. How do you engage K through 12 educators and students in meaningful STEAM learning experience? And I actually want to tie it to what you do also in terms of grants. Let's say an educator, K through 12 educator, is interested in writing a grant. Can they reach out to you? Do you work with K through educators to write a grant? Or is it your center, is it more dedicated to Pennsylvania or the collegial or university setting?
Yes, so it's not a bad idea at all for K-12 teachers to find who is their big R1 university near them
Okay.
and see if they can reach out. If they Google who broader impacts at that university, they can usually find a broader impacts department. It's usually good for them to connect. But usually the way broader impacts works is broader impacts is directly working with the researcher, and it's the researcher that needs connections to K-12. So these broader impacts professionals have those connections. I've been in the classroom for 35 years in education. I got lots of connections, a lot of respected connections. So that's part of why I'm in this role. So then I would reach out to schools and say, hey, we have this grant. We will pay you to come and get professional development on this really cool thing because it's built into the grant. In many cases, they can get a stipend for coming to the professional development. We feed them. In some cases, we pay for their transportation. In some cases, we'll pay for their lodging. And then we will also pay to make sure that they implement those new things that they've learned in their classroom and support them on their journeys. We have in the summer something called Research Experience for Teachers,
Yes, I've
where
seen
K to
that.
12 K to 12 teachers can
Yes.
shadow a researcher doing actual research, in some cases in person, in some cases even remotely. They can do it from the comfort of their home through computer data mining and whatnot. They do that for 6 weeks. And then we usually spend the seventh week talking them through of what they've learned. Our professionals have them pivot and take that learning and figure out a way to implement that in their classroom as a learning experience for their students. Usually people that participate in our RITs, they'll earn $6,000
Wow.
in the summer for doing this. They will grow professionally. Their students will just grow to a whole nother level. We've had a number of our teachers who've been involved in our programs go on to win the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching because they really understand science. Most undergraduate pre-service science education classes don't really teach, they don't really teach the way that researchers are actually doing their research. So that's a neat niche thing that our unit does.
Hmm. This is really good. This is very informative. I love that information. I don't know if many teachers or educators know about this. I've seen your information that you have sent out for teachers to come to participate in this kind of workshop, or I think you call it workshop, right?
Yeah, workshops
Yes.
usually.
I,
Yep.
I have seen that, but I don't know if many teachers really know how it works. But I think hearing you talk about it, I think now
Yes.
hopefully it will make a lot of sense to many of us. You have worked extensively in STEAM outreach and advocacy. What are some of the biggest barriers preventing underrepresented students from pursuing STEAM careers? And
I,
I actually want to, before you even answer that
yeah.
question, I want to even ask you, what are some of the biggest barriers preventing teachers, K through 12 teachers, actually connecting with your center? Because if you were to give, because you're giving workshop to teachers, connecting
Yes.
teachers with investigators in the university, in the research, I think that it will be beneficial for that type of collaboration because the teachers are learning state of the art techniques
Yes.
that they can bring into the classroom. But
Yes.
now my question is, I guess in my mind, I'm wondering, are teachers taking advantage of this? And if they are, you can share, and if they're not. So what, in your experience, what is the biggest, or what are some of the biggest barriers that is preventing that from happening? Because this is a great opportunity in my mind.
It is a great opportunity. Some barriers would be the stuff we are doing is unlike anything these teachers have ever been taught in their undergraduate education. They've not been taught to teach like this.
Mm.
This is authentic STEM. This is the way the world operates with STEM. It's unsiloed, it's convergence, it is high applied math, it is high data analysis. I think it's natural for people who haven't been involved in that to be a little fearful of, can I handle that? But really, I think anybody can, and we really support them on their journeys. And once most of our people are frequent flyers. Once they come to one of our workshops, they continue because they see, I can do this, and they see how engaged their students become, and they think they can do this. So that's a barrier. And then also, people have very busy lives and family commitments. During the school year, our workshops are on the weekends, and that's just tricky. For many of our workshops, they have to come to either our main campus or one of our branch campuses. We have a few that are remote. Those are some of the barriers, but those that have overcome those perceived barriers, they love it and they are frequent flyers. And like I said, they've gone on to win awards and have really transformed their classrooms and their schools.
In order, so this is another follow-up question. In order to participate, in your workshop, do you have to be a teacher teaching in Pennsylvania, or can you be a teacher from any of the 50 states?
So that's a very good question. Penn State is what's called a land grant university. And if you're a land grant university, you have an obligation to give back to the Commonwealth of the state that your university is housed in. So our first priority is serving all the people of Pennsylvania, but we serve all 50 states and have had participants from all 50 states involved in our programming. And as far as educators are concerned, K to 12 is our priority. But we've also had a lot of what's called OST people participate. That's out of school time. That would be after school space and those types of positions. But primarily our priority would be K to 12 first, and then others as space allows.
Excellent. And then in regards to students and children, are there any, let's say, in terms of barriers preventing? First of all, I shall ask, do you work with children's or just adults?
So most of our work is with adults, but we do
Okay.
run some student competitions. We have the
Okay.
Pennsylvania Energy Challenge, which is a solar competition. And then we also have what's called the Kid Win Challenge. These are both national competitions that involve, for us, it involves our College of Engineering, where students engineer wind turbines to generate electricity, and they're rated on how much electricity their wind turbine will create. Same thing with our solar challenge. They have solar arrays and they figure out how to get it to generate the most electricity. And again, these have competitions that we have regional competitions at our Commonwealth campuses that goes to a state competition at our main campus. And then from there, they go to Worlds. And again, I will say, not to brag, but the Pennsylvania has represented itself very well at world competitions, the students and the teams that
Oh,
have
you're
come to our
bragging
program.
now.
I am. We've got great people. Stephanie Clixbull and Amber Cesar are our Kid Win and solar people, and Susan Stewart's our engineer. They're phenomenal.
So thank you so much for sharing that. That's all good. You have the right to brag. Yeah, I have a couple of more questions. Equity and access in STEAM, at least in terms of your program. How do you ensure equity and accessibility in STEAM education? Now that I know that your focus is adults, teachers, but for teachers that are in the rural schools, on the privileged community in
Yep.
Pennsylvania, how do you ensure that there is equity and accessibility?
Yeah.
The reason why I asked that question, because I know we are in a really difficult point right now when it comes to, I don't want anyone to think in terms of the political thing that is happening, because I mentioned equity and accessibility. And immediately, I'm pretty sure many minds will go to DEI. But let me clarify what I mean. We all know that the rural schools
Yep.
underserved, right?
Yep.
And the whole idea is, and the teachers in the rural schools also need resources. So,
100%.
yeah,
Yeah.
so how do you ensure
Yeah,
that?
so I'd say you've got a good characterization of that. Rural, people with disabilities, there's just making it accessible to everyone just is a huge umbrella full of different circumstances. Where I taught for 35 years was a county that had a lot of farming in it, and I thought that was rural. And till I moved up to State College, and north of State College, it's the Allegheny National Forest, and that's as rural as can be. So I taught in a suburban school. And even though I may have thought there were challenges in a suburban school, there really weren't. The two big school populations I see in Pennsylvania that have the most challenges are urban schools
Mhm.
on the one hand and rural schools on the other hand. And I would say their challenges are both daunting in how they have to deliver K to 12 education. So we really work with as many teachers as we can from any setting, but we really understand rural education. We understand urban education, and we understand suburban education. We will work with any. But on a side note, I want to share something that another good mentor of mine, Dr. Calvin Mackey from STEM NOLA, taught me. Many universities have something called outreach. And just the comment that Calvin Mackey said to me really made me think about this. When universities have outreach, typically that outreach means that those students and those families have to come to you. And in so doing, you've already put barriers there because some families don't have the means to come to that university for an outreach activity, or may just feel embarrassed to come to a university for whatever reason. So Calvin Mackey said to me, no, Jeff, don't think of it as outreach. Think of it as reaching out. And that's his secret sauce. Wow. Reaching out, going to where people are at and where they are most comfortable. So you're eliminating barriers of whether it's psychological discomfort or physical discomfort or financial discomfort. You are going to them. Demnola, like he'll go to a community and he'll drill down to the point where in a community, where's the place that the least number of people would be negatively impacted? If he had it at, let's say it was an activity hall of a church that it was one religion, he would choose not to do that because maybe if you didn't belong to that church or believe in that religion, it would be a barrier for you going there. He even drills down to the point, what's a neutral spot that everybody in the community would agree on? This is a neutral spot. Let's go there. Not just outreach, yes, reaching out, going to people where they're at in their life, where they're at in their comfortability, and giving them the honor to show that I'm going to come to you.
I see a book coming out from you instead of outreach, reaching out.
Yeah, no, I'd have to give credit to Calvin Mackey for that.
Maybe you can collaborate with him.
Yeah.
So what strategy have been the most effective in fostering diverse and inclusive STEAM learning environment, in your view?
I just think for any environment would be early exposure. Okay. Having kids try on STEM identities and having parents be aware of STEM identities. Yes. Because there are so many pathways right now into high-paying STEM careers with advancement that are sub-baccalaureate required technicians. Yes. Like you wouldn't have to go to a 4-year college. You could get into a semiconductor technician, smart manufacturing technician. Those could be 1 year post high school, 2 years post high school, or maybe if you have a good CTC, Career and Technology Center, it can be right from that Career and Technology Center into a high paying job with career advancement that the company will pay for your education and you wouldn't have to incur college debt. So there's many pathways out there that didn't exist, I think, when you and I were young. But if kids and parents don't know that these pathways exist, and when I say know they exist, like upper elementary, they got to start to figure this out and know that these pathways exist because they're going to have to make decisions their 8th grade year to get into those pathways. If you're talking about these pathways their junior, senior year, it's in high school, it's too late for many of these. So I would say, what's the best way? The best way is you try on STEM identities and early exposure to these amazing and very much needed STEM careers.
Will you say that are we doing enough in the K through 12 in order to integrate and institute a great idea like that? Should we? Are we doing enough?
Yeah. So from my experience being in K-12 education for 35 years and being in this role, I feel like we could be doing more because really a lot of those, if it was a career thing, that was something that the school counselor was tagged on doing. If I was a classroom teacher, I didn't have to teach anything about careers because I'm teaching my subject area. That's the counselor's going to do that. But really, you think of post-pandemic, what's the majority of the counselor's time spent on? It's spent on social emotional learning, just a small fraction of their time. Like on the back burner is career development because they've got to put out the fires of all the situations that we're in. So this is a group and a community lift. And teachers, like when you're in your classroom, I lived it for 35 years, you are so focused on your classroom and all the demands that you lose awareness of all the amazing jobs and career pathways that are out there that could be directly related to the subject that you're teaching.
Yeah.
There's a big community group lift we can do there. There's vehicles out there to help with that lift called STEM ecosystems. No matter where you live in the United States, you're pretty close to a STEM ecosystem that has passionate people that can help bridge those gaps. Could we be doing more? We absolutely could be doing more. And do we need to do more? We do, because it's a matter of national security, economic security, workforce development. All of us old folks, we are part of the silver tsunami that's all retiring with the boomers. There's not a generation below us that has the numbers to replace all these jobs. This is an all hands on deck moment to get all of America understanding the critical need for workforce development and the critical need for our national security to be world leaders in this.
Yeah, you're absolutely correct. Now we have another dynamic with all the budget cuts. So do private organizations now need to step up their effort?
It's going to be a take a village. It's going to be everybody, all hands on deck. And there was just you can Google this, it's called VAST. And it is the Vision for American Science and Technology, Unleashing American Potential. It's a report that just came out from business, industry, academics. And that's pretty much what the report is saying. This is an all hands on deck moment. It's going to take a village. It's going to take all of us. But for American prosperity, we need to do it.
Absolutely. Because there's, as I've mentioned and said and written, there's a lot of competition out there. So it takes a village. You're absolutely correct. So let's talk about policy, since actually we've been talking about policy and STEM ecosystem. You are very instrumental in shaping Pennsylvania's 2022 STEEL academic standard. Can you talk about what it is, what is the process, and what does it mean for the future of STEM education?
Yeah, thanks. I'm going to back up a little bit. In 2002, I was fortunate to have received something called the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching, where you go to the White House, you get a citation and all that sort of stuff. And really, they give you a little bit of a training in how to be an advocate for STEM education as part of workforce development and national security, economic development. Since that award was put into law, it was an act of Congress, 41 years ago now, there have been literally thousands of PAMS awardees. Every year, 2 awardees, one for math, one for science, from each state is awarded. A few years ago, in 2017, they thought, let's see if we can supercharge all those awardees, and let's see if we can pick 10 and really give them advanced training on advocacy, media, social media, to see if they can move the needle. And I was fortunate enough from all the PAMS awardees to be selected as one of the 10 and got this superpowered training. At that time, I was teaching in middle school, and I was teaching other teachers at Lebanon Valley College. And our Pennsylvania science standards were being used, and they were conceived in 1996, but put into action in 2002. And here, this was, let's say, around 2015, 2016. We've been using these same standards and assessing our kids to these standards in Pennsylvania that were way older than iPhones, older than Google, older than computers. And I'm like, this cannot work for us to be competitive as a state in workforce development. If we're tying our STEM learning to something from 1996, and here it is, 2015. So when this opportunity came up, I got the training, and then they said to us, you can pick a goal of what you want to do to move the needle in STEM education. I thought, I want to have Pennsylvania adopt new standards. The next generation science standards have been out for about 3 or 4 years, and they revolutionized the way science is learned by making it less random acts of STEMness and more authentic STEM, solving complex problems by simulating what real researchers do. So started a grassroots campaign, did a lot of social media, did op-eds in all the major cities, did a lot of shoe leather advocacy at Harrisburg and the Capitol there, just really went all out, got people energized, did road shows, and through the help of many and the cooperation of many, we got the State Board of Education and the state legislature to move forward. And we got these 2022, what's called steel standards, in a tip to Pennsylvania steel history, with science, technology, engineering, and environmental literacy and sustainability standards. And many people are saying they're the best standards for STEM that are out there in the country because they have elements of the next generation science standards, but they also have environmental literacy standards that are unparalleled. And they have ag standards rolled in there. And they also have technology and engineering standards. Last week, I was at a convening of the Chesapeake Bay Consortium of the 5 states down just outside of Washington, D.C. And everybody there was just claiming how great and praising how great our standards were because of that environmental literacy component. And that's what this Chesapeake Bay convening was all about. So that, in a nutshell, is what the steels are. And currently, right now, we are helping people implement those steel standards because it's a totally different way of teaching. And it's tricky for people to wrap their head around to teach in a way that they've never been taught themselves and they've never experienced as a student.
Congratulations.
Thank you.
A follow-up question. To me, I think that the next generation science standard is the standard. Still, side by side, I know you have an element of NGSS in steel. Putting it side by side, people that, like me, who have been trained on NGSS probably will have hesitation in using a different type of standard because in my mind, I'm just saying what could be better than NGSS.
Yeah. So if you put them side by side, the way they're formatted, it looks similar. They have performance expectations, and they have the science and engineering practices, the cross-cutting concepts, and the disciplinary core ideas. But the richness of this is it has local context for Pennsylvania. It's got workforce development built in for Pennsylvania, and it's got tie-ins to other Pennsylvania academic subjects. So I was a big doer and believer of project-based learning when I was teaching in Pennsylvania for 35 years. And under the old standards, it was so hard to do project-based learning because it wasn't built for that. It wasn't built for convergence. The old standards were built for being siloed in your subject areas. Yes,
that's not good. That's not good.
No, the way we built Steels, it is totally built for, it is a launching pad for convergence, transdisciplinary education projects, which is really what's happening in business and industry and what's happening here at Penn State in research. It is convergence research, transdisciplinary research. The problems the world has are so complex. You need multiple disciplines coming together, thinking together on how to solve, to rally around a problem and solve it. That's what those steel standards do. Hopefully they're fully utilized so that they can do that.
Thank you. Do you know how many states have adopted the steel standard, or is it just
It would be the NGSS. I'm thinking we're probably well over half of the 50 states have adopted NGSS, or what we call three-dimensional standards. It could be as much as 3/4 of the United States have adopted. I don't know for sure. That would be an easy, quick Google. But I'm guessing it's probably somewhere between a half and 3/4 of the states have adopted what's called three-dimensional or NGSS type standards.
Oh, okay. Thank you so much. Maybe it's my misconception. I thought the steel standard is different from NGSS.
It is, but they're similar in that they're both three-dimensional and they both have performance expectations instead of regular standards. But there is more. The steel standards in Pennsylvania are far richer than NGSS alone.
I'm glad that we're talking about this because many people may not know about the steel standards. And I'm an advocate of knowing or having knowledge on different standards. It's very important for us. So thank you so much for sharing that. How do you see policy, education, and industry collaboration working together to advance STEAM education? You've talked so much about steel standards, and you've done a great job actually articulating how the steel standards actually facilitates the collaboration
Yeah.
between the different workforce and education and all that, and an integration of disciplines. So I don't know whether this question is redundant or not,
Yeah. Yeah.
but how do you see the policy, education, and industry collaboration working together to advance STEAM education?
So I would say again, I just posted on this on my LinkedIn today on VAST again. So it's a document that just recently came out, Vision for American Science and Technology, Unleashing American Potential. Um, to me, this has a pretty good blueprint of answering that question that you just asked. Again, if you're viewing this and you can Google VAST or look at my LinkedIn post today, you'll get a sense that this takes an all America village approach to that question.
Excellent. I cannot wait to read that. I'm going to go once we finish this podcast. I'm going to go to to your site to check it out.
Okay.
Definitely. What can state and national leaders do to strengthen STEAM ecosystem and ensure better workforce preparation?
Very simple
Okay.
line item in the state budget, and then also get business and industry partnerships, maybe tax incentives or tax credits to business and industry that contribute in some way, shape, or form to what I call curiosity to career STEM workforce development. To me, that's a win for everybody.
Yeah, yeah, I agree. One thing that I would like to see, I would like to see more parents' involvement, uh,
Yep.
especially in the BIPOC community.
Yep.
I think that may be actually be one of the keys. Now, the question is, how do we galvanize and get parents more involved? Our parents, including me, when our children are very small, we're very involved. But as they grow a little older,
Yeah.
for the
It's
one
tricky.
reason, for
It's
one reason
tricky.
or the other,
Tricky.
yeah, we're not as involved. But I think that is even more time for us to be really truly involved. But so that is just my take. But I like your answers. I think the government will do this. But I did my own research a while ago. I was just amazed how much money that is being allocated to STEAM education. It's just incredible. And I believe that there's a section in my dissertation that I also included that conversation with data, of course, because my interest was if we're spending so much money in STEAM, why are we not, why are we 25th or 20 something in math and science comparable to the other industrial plus countries?
Yeah.
So I think that the government, they're doing their part, but I'm wondering there may be other people or other, maybe the parents, the community that needs to do their part. But again, I'm not accusing anyone, but I'm just
Yeah. Yeah.
wondering. I'm
Yeah.
thinking out loud.
Yeah.
Um, Future of STEAM and career development. What trends or innovation in STEAM education do you see currently? And which one excites you the most?
Okay, I'm going to go back to the VAST report because the VAST report is spot on with what I've been seeing, and that is AI, artificial intelligence, material science.
Ah,
And I will just say we work with a lot of those researchers frequently at Penn State, the AI researchers, the material science researchers. Those two things
yes.
I think are really going to change a lot of problems in the world because the material science is going to have the physical connectedness to solve the problem, and the AI is going to have the creative mind to solve the problem. In addition to that, new and sustainable energy sources, because AI is driven by these data centers, and the phenomena
Yes.
we're seeing now is these data centers want to be located near nuclear
Energy.
power plants
Yes.
because they have commitments to be green by 2030, 2035, and solar and wind are not reliable enough. Nuclear is. I think AI, material science, and sustainable energy are three big, fascinating areas that can help solve a lot of problems in STEM. I would also say biomedical
Hmm.
and agriculture. We
Yeah.
still have to feed people, We still have to innovate when it comes to keeping people healthy. So, boy, I get excited about all of them. And the fortunate thing for my job is I get to work with all those researchers
Yeah.
and just see what's the latest thing coming down the track.
Thank you so much for saying that. I like the fact that you mentioned the data center and energy, because you're right. A few months ago, when I read an article by, I believe, Elon Musk, that was talking about the pressing issue in the near future is energy.
Yes.
And you'd really, I was wondering, we have abundance of energy. We have a lot of nuclear energy, right? We derive a lot of energy from nuclear power plants, right? But again, we in the United States, our industrialized, developed countries, we have the luxury, but other countries literally don't. So I do understand. But I'm thinking from the perspective of being in a developed country with a lot of energy. So I couldn't conceive it until recently when I start reading more about the data plants, data station, and the amount of energy that is needed.
Yeah.
That I think you're onto something. You're absolutely
Yeah.
correct in that. If I was planning my career path as a young person, this is what I'll be thinking. But this
Yeah.
is just me.
Yeah.
This
Yeah.
is just me. That is great. Then, in what advice will you give to a student to students who are uncertain about their career path in STEAM? And that even applies to an adult who is now trying to do a career change, because things are changing. When I developed this question a while ago,
Yeah.
I didn't anticipate that there's going to
Yeah.
be some changes taking place, but
Yeah.
now we're in the middle of changes.
Yeah.
So, any advice, sir?
Yeah, I just think there is more opportunity today than there ever was because AI can help decrease barriers. If you were concerned, I don't have enough knowledge for this or this, AI is the great translator. It can help translate complex things to help you understand them better. There is more fluidity or flexibility in going from one job to another with micro credentialing, where micro credentialing is going to be more valued as we go through time to learn specific skills. Because new skills are needed in new emerging technologies and jobs. And I think it's very easy to pivot. I think a key thing you got to have is a growth mindset. And that mindset is that you can always improve. And the thing about growth mindset is you can always improve if you think you're very poor at something or if you think you're the best. LeBron James has a very strong growth mindset. If there was a basketball player that could have really not put a lot of time in practice and listen to criticism and this and that, it would be LeBron James, but he continues to work every day very hard to get better than he already is and better than he was yesterday.
Wow.
And there's so many athletes that have that growth mindset. And those are the athletes that really shine. And the same thing can be applied to STEM. Just think of that growth mindset that you can always improve. You can always get better.
I never thought about growth mindset and STEAM will go hand in hand, but hearing you talk about it right now, it does make sense. That is great. That is really great. So, how can educators better prepare their students for real world application of STEAM?
Yeah, so I would say what we try and do is take teachers on a journey from what I would call random acts of STEMness
Okay.
to authentic STEM. And what is random acts of STEMness? Random acts of STEMness are more transactional. They're shallow. They don't have a long-range vision of purpose of where things are going. I'll give you an example, putting Mentos in Coke. Is there a benefit for that? It's a cool thing to see. It does get kids excited, but it's shallow beyond that point, how motivated are kids to really find out what's going on. And that's not really the work of researchers. I have been up at Penn State for 3 years, gone into multiple labs. I have yet to see a researcher put Coke in Mentos. I have yet to see a researcher make a Jello mold of a cell. Like those kinds of modeling and demonstration, there might be a little pedagogical value to it, but what teachers and students really need to be engaged in is the authentic work of research, and that is applied math, data analysis, computer programming. So many of these researchers are computer programmers because they've got to write programs for the specific data that needs to be figured out, unique to their work. So those are the experiences, more towards the authentic in what you would find in the next generation science standards is the science and education practices. That's what we need more of.
Thank you so much for sharing that. So, what's one advice you give educators, students, policymakers about advancing STEAM education?
I would say the whole it takes a village approach, that if it's just on the shoulders of K to 12 educators, that's not enough. K to 12 educators need support from a whole village. And they need to, it's not just to be appreciated, it's to feel appreciated and respected. And those connections with business and industry, with parents, with policymakers, we all have to be paddling in the same direction for making our country as prosperous as it can be in STEM.
Thank you so much. How can listeners connect with you or get involved in STEAM outreach program like yours?
Yes, I'm on LinkedIn, so they can easily find me on LinkedIn. And then for us, we are the Penn State Center for Science in the Schools, Penn State CSAT. Just Google that, you'll find us. And if you're not in Pennsylvania, you can probably Google ARIS, ARIS, and that is a national organization of broader impacts professionals that do the kinds of work that our unit does at Penn State, but they do it at all other major R1 universities, big research universities throughout the country.
And I'll make sure that I put that on the YouTube site so that anyone that wants to get a hold of you can also reach you. So what's the next step? What's next for you in your work with STEAM outreach and policy?
Yeah, I think just keep showing up every day, doing as much as I can. Because again, I am a firm believer that the answers to all the world's problems are in the minds of our youth, no matter where they are on the planet. If we're overlooking one of those minds, that could be the mind that had the key answer we were waiting for to cure cancer or something like that. And that's what Haiti showed me. I saw brilliance in some of those students. There was a student that I worked with in Haiti that took to computer programming like a fish takes to water, and ended up during the pandemic founding a app company called Dakla that helped navigate Haiti through the pandemic and probably saved thousands of lives. So you don't know what seeds you plant and how those minds are going to use that for good.
That's powerful. So a quick fire fun question, and then we're going to end. Uh, so if I was to ask you, what is one of your favorite STEM experiment or STEAM experiment, what will it be?
So it's not going to be a random act of STEMness. It's going to be an authentic activity. And it's one that I did for about 30 years. And it's called a grasshopper field study. It's a project-based learning where we took all of our seventh graders, about 300 of them, out in fields. And these fields were plotted out. And we caught all the grasshoppers in those fields. Different groups were assigned different fields.
Whoa.
Each field then, once the grasshopper was harvested safely, still alive, we put a little nail polish as a tag, gathered them all up, counted them, destroyed half of the plots by cutting the grass down to the ground, re-released all the grasshoppers to their original plots, came back a couple days later, recaptured all the grasshoppers, coded them by what tags we saw to see if the grasshoppers moved from where the habitat was damaged to not. We used authentic math called the Lincoln Index to track that migration. And I will tell you, in 30, 35 years of teaching, I've had so many students share with me how impactful that science activity was. But I've never had a student come back to me and say, Mr. Rem, that was the best test prep day we've ever had or the best worksheet we've ever had. It is those authentic experiences where they are trying on the identity of what a researcher would actually do.
Hmm. Is there a book somewhere, anyone written a book that compiles this authentic type of
Well,
science experiment?
if your viewers would just Google citizen science
Okay.
and project-based learning, you will find lots of examples.
Okay.
So a note of caution, I do a lot of work with AI,
Yes.
and AI is good and it's going to get good. There's a lot of programs out there that will write lesson plans for you through AI.
Mhm. Great.
Most of the lessons, so it's gleaning this information, the training set for this is what's on the internet. Most of the lessons on the internet are low-hanging fruit lessons.
Hmm.
They're not challenging lessons. Like project-based learning, citizen science lessons are probably less than 5% of the lessons that are out there. So if you're a brand new teacher and you're relying on AI to write your lessons, I'll say just be very careful in how you do your prompts so that you get a high quality lesson from
Jeff, maybe you can write a book. Just, oh, yes, sir. You're going to be the authority on this one.
it.
All right. What is the biggest myth about STEAM that you love to debunk?
It is that random acts of STEMness. Because I see it now that I'm up here at a university at Penn State, that kids think that these canned labs that they do and these demonstrations that they do, like Mentos and Coke and all that, they think that's what, sorry, my lights went out here. They think that's what science is really about. And it's funny, we have Penn State is known around the world for our meteorology department, and we'll get a lot of freshmen come in and they'll see the local weatherman on the news and they're like, that's what I want to do. And then they realize how much calculus and statistical modeling is involved in meteorology. What I would love to debunk is these random acts of STEMness where you're not really giving an accurate picture as an educator of what research scientists and engineers really do day in and day out. It is far deeper than that, than a simple transactional random act of STEMness.
Excellent. Thank you so much for that. If you were to recommend a book, and I know there's a book coming from you very soon, or maybe you can start your own podcast. What will you recommend for aspiring educators, parents, students?
Yeah, I'm not so much of a sit down book person, but I like to listen to podcasts. So, like Science Friday, I enjoy. I've enjoyed anything from David Attenborough and the BBC. As my students will tell you, that I'm a nerd when it comes to David Attenborough, and Nova is another good thing. Yeah.
Thank you so much for that. Today has been, the conversation has been quite insightful, Jeff. It's been incredible. I just want to thank you a lot
Thank you.
for taking your precious time. I know you're busy, sharing your insight and experience and passion when it comes to STEAM education, mentorship, and workforce. Today, you will agree with me that our team, the importance of hands on learning and mentorship in STEAM, breaking down barriers for underrepresented communities, for example, community in the rural part of our country, providing accessibility and equity, and how to collaborate between education, industries, policy, and you even suggest a good read, which is vast, that you posted on your
Yeah.
LinkedIn.
Yeah.
I really cannot wait to go and check it out. Jeff, your work at the Penn State Center for Science and School and your advocacy for STEAM outreach is truly inspiring. I want to thank you for your dedication, shaping the next generation of STEAM professional. To our readers, what are your key takeaway from today's discussion? Let's keep the conversation going. connect with us, connect with Jeff Remington, and connect with us also on social media and share your thoughts and let us know how you making an impact in STEAM. And I would like to also share good news that I just recently wrote a book. So I don't know if you can see it,
Yep.
but the name of the book is Glucose the Duck Go to a Party. It is a fun book. It's a children's book. And I wrote this book as a way of exposing children to science vocabulary terms at an early age so that by the time they get to high school or middle school, they're very much familiar with the vocabulary terms. And this book also touched a little bit about diabetes and the high glucose in the blood
Yeah.
and the insulin issues in the blood not being able to work effectively in addressing the high level of glucose or sugar in the blood system. I think it's going to be fun, but I wrote in a way whereby it's like a storytelling. It has facility. It helps the parents to have a conversation in a story way with their children. And while you're doing that, you're also introducing those vocabulary terms to the children. For example, insulin, right? Glucose, right? Glycolysis, trying to introduce the young children to those terms at an early stage so that by the time they are of age or they come across science terms in the science classroom, they're very much familiar with it. Would like to encourage everyone to check it out, buy it, so that we can continue to do the work of this podcast. So this is just my way of thinking outside the box. That's the way to support this podcast and the things that we're doing, trying to bring more awareness to the benefit of STEAM. I would like to thank everyone for listening to us, for taking your time. Please stay in touch, stay connected. Visit our website at steamsparks.com and watch and subscribe to our YouTube station, which is Steam Spark YouTube station. Listen on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and Buzzsprout, and more. If you love this episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review. It helps us continue to bring valuable conversation with people like Jeff Remington, as you can see, an expert in STEAM outreach. Thank you for tuning into STEAM Spark Think STEAM Career Podcast, where we ignite curiosity, inspire learning, and empower the future of STEAM. Until next time, keep dreaming, keep being curious, like Jeff has said, keep exploring, and keep sparking change, like Jeff. Thank you. Until next time. Bye, everyone.